Welcome back and welcome to my December wrap up. A lot of what I read in December I talked about in some of the vlogs that I filmed during Vlogmas, so I will leave my Vlogmas playlist linked up there in case you missed any of my December videos. Like I say, I talk about a lot of these books in those videos, and I feel like I read a little bit more on ebook this month than I have done in previous months. So I have 3 ebooks to talk about. I read It Won't Be Christmas Without You by Beth Reekles, which was really sweet. It was quite a quick read. I don't think it's that long, but it's a full-length novel, and it's about twin sisters who have quite different opinions about Christmas and are in quite different positions this Christmas, and the mishaps and adventures that happen when it comes to actually getting together for Christmas. And I really enjoyed that one, and it was perfect reading for kind of this time of year. I finished it just after Christmas, but it was really good for being able to like pick up, read 5%, put down, come back to the next day, which is what you want at this time of year. Also really good for reading at this time of year is a novella, and I read It Happened on Christmas Eve by Kirsty Greenwood, which was fantastic. All the reviews that I read of this one said, I love this, but I wish it was a full-length novel. And I really feel like I wish that this one was a full-length novel, but then I think we wouldn't have got as kind of romantic as quickly as we did. There was all sorts of levels of romance. We've got that Christmas Carol aspect of, we start out a bit like bar humbug, and then things happen to question that particular standpoint, and it was just really enjoyable. So I highly recommend downloading this one. I think it's about 80 something pages long, so it was a nice quick read as well, and I read it in kind of 2 chunks, which was lovely. And then I also read The Rise and Fall of Sadie McQueen by Juliet Ashton. I feel like this one is slightly different from her previous novels because she always puts her characters through a ton of stuff. You feel really sorry for everything that her characters have to put up with and have to go through. They go through the absolute ringer, and I love her novels for that because there's plenty of drama in there. But I feel like normally kind of in between the dramatic revelations and the dramatic bits, we've got some nice heartwarming bits, and we've got a kind of like really interesting narrative to keep you turning the pages, whereas this one I just felt a little bit like in between the revelations it got a little bit kind of slow, just a bit slow, and so when we got to a revelation I was like, oh, something's happening, and then we'd go kind of back to real life and I was like, oh, okay. I think I wanted just a little bit more, I don't know, maybe I just didn't feel invested in those side characters enough. It all takes place around this muse, and each chapter starts with a kind of muse meeting, and so I think if I was a little bit more invested in the muse characters I might not have felt that way about the kind of narrative in between the events. But the events that Sadie goes through, very interesting, very relatable, and definitely very dramatic, but the kind of bits in between just didn't do it for me like they normally do. And then moving on to some physical books, I read A Guinea Pig Nutcracker, which I have a couple of these books on my channel where I have read them with Guinea Pig Button, and this just looks like Guinea Pig Button on the front cover here, and it's so her, and like looking at the kind of pose of the Guinea Pig Nutcracker on the back of the book as well, that is just so Button. And so unfortunately I was not with Button this Christmas, so I couldn't read A Guinea Pig Nutcracker with her, but I enjoyed this one and definitely recommend it if you're looking for gifts for people for next year. It makes a great stocking stuffer. And then I finally got round to reading the musical edition of The Creakers by Tom Fletcher, which as you're reading you get to a point where there's a point in the page, which is always difficult to find under pressure like this, where it tells you to play a song, and the song goes with whatever's going on in the chapter at the time. And so you kind of like, you can keep reading while the song's playing if you're that way inclined. Me, I stopped and listened to the song, and the songs really do fit with what's going on in the book. And just like the Christmasaurus, we have some truly beautiful illustrations in this book, even down to like the end pages, which just look fantastic, and the cover. And then at the back of this one, we also have the words that go with the songs, which I really like as well. And those are even illustrated too. So this one has some really good things to say about trusting in people's opinions and kind of their leadership, even if they're not necessarily in a position of power. And it also has some interesting things to say about kind of waste and recycling, which is very kind of topical and timely. So I'm looking forward to seeing what kind of musical edition he comes out with next, because I enjoy that aspect of kind of book and CD, although I do have to make sure that I'm at home, because I can't obviously take this out with me and get them to play a CD somewhere. It's the only drawback with that one. And then another physical book I have to show you is I finally got round to reading Home Alone 2 Lost in New York, the picture book version, which is as well absolutely beautiful and has some great illustrations in it, and it's definitely not as scary as the movie itself. I will not watch either of the Home Alone movies, but reading the book was really fun and I really enjoyed it. And I actually read this with a small person and they enjoyed it too, and it wasn't scary. So again, would make a good present for next year. And then I have a couple of picture books which I do not have to share with you because I had to return them to the library. So I will have pictures of those on my blog post of this same video, which my blog is always linked in the description box. So if you really want to find out about the picture books I read, you can go and head over to my blog because they'll be listed on there. And then we have some audiobooks. I have a lot of these where I don't have the physical book to show you. A couple of Christmas themed ones, which I talked about in my audiobooks recommendation video, which I will leave up here in case you haven't seen it already. I listened to Last Christmas, which is edited by Emma Thompson and Greg Wise, who of course produced the movie of the same name. These are stories about people's very different experiences of Christmas though, and go towards, the purchase of the book went towards charity. So we've got people who are homeless at Christmas, people who live in different countries at Christmas, people who are refugees and their recall of Christmas, older people and kind of comparing Christmas now to Christmas in childhood, celebrities and what their Christmas is like. And each story was so very different, and they were not narrated by the people who wrote them, but Greg Wise does an introduction to each person and kind of gives you a very brief background as to who's writing the story, so you know what kind of thing it is going into it. And again, this was really great listening for this time of year because it was really easy to pick up and put down, and so I just listened to it whilst commuting around and going to work and going to do other Christmassy things, and really enjoyed it. And you don't have to have seen the movie because even though they've got the same title, it's nothing to do with the movie. Then I listened to Little Weirds by Jenny Slate, which again I talked about in more detail in that video. It was quite different from what I was expecting. I didn't know going into it that it was going to be kind of written in verse and more poetic than biographical, but nevertheless it was enjoyable. And then I also listened to Skipping Christmas by John Grisham, which I made a book versus movie video talking about because of course this is the story behind Christmas with the Cranks, and in the book versus movie I talk about the similarities and the lack of differences between the book and the film. Then I also listened to Everything I Know About Love by Dolly Alderton. I've been on the waitlist for the audio of this one for a little while, and obviously it received a lot of acclaim when it was released. It was shortlisted for a lot of different prizes, and has done incredibly well. I believe it comes off of a blog or a podcast as well, and I just really enjoyed listening to this one. It was probably my kind of favorite book of the month of December. It's non-fiction, it was easy to dip in and out of, it was great for being in the car when I was traveling around, it was great for listening to while I was kind of sorting out the house, getting it ready for Christmas, and it was just incredibly relatable. I didn't look up exactly how old she is, but the kind of points of reference she has, she must be almost the same age as me. And so yeah, there was points where I was like, yes, I recognise this, and yes, I agree with you there. And she's brutally honest, which I also love. I mean, what's not to love about that? Then I listened to Get a Life, Chloe Brown. This is one that I picked up a couple of months ago and put down, and so I re-borrowed the audiobook from my library because a lot of people who like the same kind of books as I do really like this one. And so I thought, well, you know, I'm going to persevere because lots of people are raving about it. It's popping up on a lot of people's kind of best of list for the year, and so I did persevere, but it just wasn't for me. It just felt a little disjointed, and because I didn't really like Chloe Brown, I couldn't really get into the romance aspect of it because I didn't really care about what kind of romance she got, because I just wasn't a fan of her as a person, and I didn't like the male protagonist either, and I was just like, it was very forgettable for me, and kind of, yeah, regret sort of persevering with it. Like I say, other people who I know and trust seem to like it, and they like the similar things to me, so I thought perhaps, but no, it just wasn't for me. I'm sure, like I say, lots of other people liked it, and so I'm sure you will find someone who will give you a more positive opinion of it. And then I have a couple of physical books here that I listened to on audiobook to show you. The first of these, I read the first like 100 pages of it in August, I think, or September. I think right before it was published. So it was published in October, so maybe it was September. And this is Bouncing Back by Scott Ostler. Like I say, it was published in October, and this is a middle grade book about a boy who plays wheelchair basketball, but there are a whole load of other things that go into it. That's just the kind of general overview. He begins playing wheelchair basketball. He was injured in an accident and was a basketball player, and we see kind of what it's like for him getting back on the court, but in a very different situation. And then we also have kind of corrupt local politician and you know, possible end of the funding for the basketball team. And then we also have some kind of prejudice in there and some infighting, and there's lots and lots of things going on each and every page. I don't know why I kind of put it down and picked something else up. Perhaps October was just a busy release month for me, but I really enjoyed it, and I thought that the audiobook was really good. I think reading the first 100 pages in book form, but then listening to it on audiobook was a good move for me, because it kind of like changed things up, and it is one of those where we have text messages that go back and forth between the characters as well. So reading it in physical book form would probably be advisable for that kind of thing, but I do think that the narrator did a good job of the audiobook. So there we have it. And yeah, a couple of like middle grades in there to mix in, and then something completely different for me. We have The Vanished Bride by Bella Ellis, which I talked about in my audiobook video as well. Bella Ellis is better known as Rowan Coleman, who is an amazing writer, and she has branched into some mystery books where the heroines of those books, these books are the Bronte sisters, and this is book one in what is going to be a series. It's really interesting having the Bronte sisters and their brother as well be kind of like sleuths in this situation, but it was really cool sort of seeing the parsonage and seeing like Haworth in different circumstances, and them talking about going to other kind of Yorkshire cities in the area, and it was really good. I enjoyed kind of hearing the mystery unravel and finding out how they got the clues that they got. So if you like mystery or you like things to do with the Bronte sisters, then I am sure you will like this one. So there we have it. I pretty much read most of the things that I wanted to read on my TBR, and then ended up falling back on my good friend the audiobook for the rest of my reading for the rest of the month. December is always super busy, so I think audiobooks are key for the month of December, which is why I put out that video of kind of some audiobook recommendations. And as you have seen, if it wasn't for audiobooks, my reading would have been severely diminished. But I did get some ebook reading time this month too, and hopefully January will be good for ebooks as well, because I've got quite a few on my Kindle that I'll publish in January, so need to definitely get to those. Let me know in the comments what your favourite book in the month of December was. I will be back with my January TBR and also my review of the year for you very, very soon. So make sure you are subscribed so that those land in your subscription feed. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, and I will see you with my next video very soon. Bye.